Last time on Wizard and the Bruiser.
Oh my God, she's a man!
What do you mean the formula is actually a poison?
It's taking over my mind, and soon it will take over the city as well!
I'm not just proud to call you my son. I'm proud to call you my daughter?
Linda, I can't find my dick or my balls.
I swear to God, man, I will kill every puppy in this nursery if I don't get the fucking codes.
I tell you what, Mr. Scenario, we've never been in this room before. Lightning crash. Damn, that was a crazy episode, Jake.
I mean, honestly, like, a lot happened in the canon. We really moved the story forward.
It was like we started talking about GTA and the legacy and how it originally started, you know, in England, and then all of a sudden these crazy plot twists happen. What was with the monster?
We're the Steven universe of podcasting. We'll just ease you along in some pleasant comedy, and then all of a sudden, kablamo, story dump.
Unbelievable. The lightning crash noises, everything. It was unreal.
We definitely didn't cover the story of a bunch of cheeky British people and how they made a fuck ton of money making games about crimes.
Controversy, yes. Hello. We are here. I am the wizard, Holden McNeely.
And I am the bruiser, Jake Young. With us is always super producer Marcus Parks.
Hey. Yeah,
Classic.
Good tagline. Good tagline. And we are here with the part 2 of our series on GTA. And yeah, it's going to be a real humdinger, Jake.
Now, we left off on GTA San Andreas, which was just a landmark kind of milestone in gaming. It's the #1 best-selling PlayStation 2 game of all time.
Oh,
which,
shit.
Considering that the PlayStation 2 itself is the most popular video game console of all time, I think it's up there. It's super.
Oh
up there.
man, I remember when it was when the first time it was in a magazine. I was out front of a Quiznos that my buddy Ben Epps worked at, and we
Odd enough, Ben and Quiznos both dead now.
right?
So
and we
tragic.
spread open the magazine. I remember we all literally went, wow. And I remember thinking, because I was really into Stanley Kubrick at the time, still am, but you know, that it was like the black monolith of knowledge.
Finally, a console that works lying on its side and vertically.
Yes, finally, my
Turn
dream.
that logo, just go, and now it's like cool.
I used to put my N64 on its side because I was the ultimate hipster back in the day. But yeah, it really was an important system. And yes, that game sold over 27.5 million copies worldwide. And you know why? Because it introduced bicycles and jetpacks.
Oh yeah, there was. They added a lot of neat things in San Andreas. They added basketball, and you could play pool. You could gamble. Your character could get into debt, and like a level of character customization.
You could date. You could go eat. You could get fat. You could get muscular. You could get skinny.
You could modify your car, and if you were real curious, if you went poking around in the game's code, you discovered a fun little secret.
You could fuck. Yeah, you could have filthy, dirty, nasty sex. And it's kind of funny. It was like, for the Housers, the whole motivation was like, we've conquered violence. We've done it.
Which is, by the way, the most Hauser brother statement. It's like, we did it. We did the violence.
Actually, we always have to change it. We did it. We conquered violence.
I love strippers and cocaine and the United States of America.
Oi, 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 football.
Football. No one gets vacation. Keep working.
You know, hilariously enough, a side note, you know, they got real ass gangsters in a lot of ways and like different kind of actors out in LA to portray the voices in Grand Theft Auto. And I remember there's one point in Jacked when he paints a scenario where the gangster's like this thug dude's like lights a blunt in the studio. He looks down and the line of dialogue is, "What is this rubbish?" And he was like, "What the fuck?" And so there was a lot of like really funny kind of translation issues that Rockstar's kind of always dealt with, but especially here when it's kind of trying to emulate dialogue in the black community in Compton. Like,
that's part of the surreality of these games, is that it's these guys from London's vision of what America is brought to life by a team in Scotland.
Yeah, exactly. It's like an Outback Steakhouse in Japan.
The thing we're going to be talking about is the hot coffee mod, which really wasn't a mod. That's the thing that people get confused about.
Yes.
And this is one of the great... I remember this roiling in the background when I was like a teenager, and I just like... or in college, whatever, time is a flat circle. And I remember this was a big deal, but like I just didn't care. I just didn't follow the news. So like,
right.
And nobody really understood how games were made. So there's a lot of disinformation about this.
It's a complex issue for people who know nothing about games. Not so much if you do know a decent amount about, especially PC gaming. And you have to understand a little bit of the history of the GTA franchise, Rockstar, and the modding community. It was tight.
Yeah.
It was tight, you know, and you even got that sense in the past because GTA 2, one of their marketing things that they did, which I don't think we talked about, they wrote on the package, "Steal this game," and it really pissed retailers off like really bad. So they had to actually like pull games from stores and smack a sticker on it and put it back out. Is it really like caused a frenzy? But they were into that in actual practice. They liked the modding community, where others would shun modders and try to keep them from modding their game. They embraced the community with open arms.
We talked about this on the Valve episode, that by making modding easier, you actually encourage more people to buy the games because at no cost, you kind of unleash all this content and extra value to your game. Because in a pre-internet, like easy download, pre-high-speed internet day, you still need to get a fucking copy of the game in order to play all these mods. So I remember even as a kid, I would play GTA 3 and I would go into the texture files and make my own custom skins for Claude, the beloved mute.
And I would make my own skins in my basement, but it was a different situation where I was harvesting bodies
from
and stealing
drifters.
their skin. Yes, from different drifters.
So, but here's the thing, though. The hot coffee mod is barely a mod because the Hauser brothers, like we said, they conquered violence, and there is a lot of documentation, especially in all the resulting lawsuits and hearings that end up coming out. There's a lot of internal emails and documentation where Sam Hauser was like, I want fucking in this game.
We need sex in this game. It's the final frontier. We've got the violence. Now we need this hot sex.
Games are a mature medium that also make me rich. And also, I hate Jack Thompson. Whether it's for art or spite, he wanted sex in this game.
And well, another thing you have to realize, Jake, which just kind of popped in my head, is they immediately went into production for San Andreas the second they stopped production for Vice City. I mean, this is a game company that never stops. And I think that has a lot of influence, too. It's like, what do we do next? What do we do next? We did it. We did everything. We did this. We did that. We can't just add jetpacks and bicycles and create a space of land that's larger than like all our previous games combined. We need something else besides a black protagonist. What can we have? Let's do fucking spanking minigame, which is a thing that was in the game. There was a spanking minigame. Of course, CJ, as we would soon find out from the modding community, there was a sex situation minigame that came from dating. I remember, too, in the original release, you dated so that you could get invited in. And I remember actually being like straight up bummed out that it just cut to like outside of the house and you just heard moaning noises.
Now, you could go on date, and the dating minigame had benefits. A lot of people point out that if you seduced a nurse, you could get into the hospital. If you got wasted, you would leave the hospital with all your guns intact.
If you seduced a car, it would follow you around and come. You could call it.
I love you.
The Epona
I'm
minigame.
a car. Honk, honk.
You had to jump it over the fence, and then the farmers would be.
Last night was magical. I really felt something. Honk, honk.
Which is, of course, where the Pixar franchise Cars came from. Was actually that mini game.
Now it is patently ludicrous how the world sees sex in media as opposed to violence.
And looking back on this, it's even more ludicrous looking than it is now.
But a big part of that is in Europe, you can still show nudity and stuff. Like I think the rule is you can have like just full frontal male nudity as long as there's no boners.
Back in high school, I'm gonna say this is year 1999, 2000, maybe probably year 2000. I remember we took a class trip to London, which was crazy, by the way. I don't know how how this ended up happening. And I remember we were all put in different hotel rooms, no supervisor. I turned the TV on and just
titties,
bush for days. I couldn't believe it. Titties and bush. And we didn't leave the hotel room. All of London was outside our hotel room, and we couldn't leave. There was just free breasts.
The tower. Why did no one show up to the Tower of London tour?
And everybody had to use the restroom every 15 minutes. It was very uncomfortable. And the stink of that room. Oh my God.
I'll never forget the ammonia-like stench of England.
So, yeah, I mean, it's really kind of silly how blown over. And if you do go and watch these sex scenes, which I highly, highly suggest, and we will kind of talk through them in a second, they are so low-key. But let's first tell the story of how this ended up happening. A 38-year-old modder in the Netherlands, they're always from the Netherlands, named Patrick Wildenborg, releases, he puts a patch out. He's like he's in the modding community. He finds this content. He finds out how to release this content.
Well, this is the crazy part is, so because the modding community was so vibrant for GTA, and because GTA itself kind of positioned itself in opposition to Jack Thompson as like the official game of gamers, the community knew that something was up from day one. It was like beyond the PC modding community. People would like dump through the code, and they didn't know what it was, but they knew that something had been blocked off.
Right.
That there was just this mystery box in their favorite game.
Now, of course, what happened was they put all these sex scenes and these mini games into the game, and then at the kind of the last minute, to Dan Houser's great chagrin, he was very upset about this. They came back and said, no, you got to take these scenes out. He was incredibly pissed off, which I think influenced some of this decision, whereas the other decision is, a game is like a car. Should I say a car? We've been using cars a lot. If you remove one part, it's going to like offset everything else. I mean, you'd have to totally rejigger the whole thing, right?
There's animation files from Hot Coffee that are used in other parts of the game, and on such short notice to kind of rebuild that library would have taken way more effort than it should have.
Whereas you can just block the content out in the game files, not assuming that someone could pull it out and release the game. So that's what they did. They blocked these scenes and they put out the game.
There's some internal stuff at Rockstar. This is from the book Jacked, that we're getting a lot of this information from.
By David Kushner.
Where it turns out that part of the compromise was there was internal plans at Rockstar to release a PC patch later.
Yes.
That would unlock that content.
Yes.
So it was blocked off. They knew they couldn't release the game as is, but they were planning as kind of a final fuck you to the censors that hey man, if we sell the game, it's rated MA. If you download a patch to make it adults only, that's not our fault.
Yeah. And that was it. So it was like a mixture. Definitely not a surefire, straight up fuck up. There was definitely a little bit of deviousness going on there. Well,
so people were picking apart the console release and were like, ooh, there's a weird animation of a thrust of some kind. I can't tell if it's CJ, or ooh, here's a texture file for some skimpy panties. People were struggling to piece this together.
Those pixels look like balls. And they started to kind of figure it out. And then this guy, Patrick Wildenborg, finally figures out a way to essentially patch in these missing scenes, and he puts it out as a mod called Hot Coffee in June of 2005.
Based on his own love of the beverage and of course, why don't you come in for a cup of coffee?
For a cup of coffee, because in the very end of the date, you've finally succeeded in the dating minigame when she invites you in for a cup of coffee. Now, let's talk about these sex scenes, because they're really funny. I mean, they are
dumb.
Fully clothed in a lot of them, and you have to hit up and down in order to, to the rhythm to have sex.
To fill the meter.
It's incredibly stiff looking. It starts with, there is a BJ. She gets down. Again, you never see a penis. You never see a vagina or boobs or anything. No boobs. And it's just really boring, missionary after the oral sex. And it's so funny too, because I feel like this is one of those British kind of silly translations. when she invites you in for coffee, it says in the text at the bottom of the screen, it says, "This is it. She's inviting you in for coffee. Gird your loins for love," which is the dumbest.
That's I've talked about this. I talked about it last week, but it's the twin like things of like Rockstar kind of holding aloft themselves as these like protectors of mature content for discerning adults, and the actual mature content they produce, especially in these early days.
Oh my God, it's
so dumb,
so goofy, and I watched quite a bit of these fun scenes earlier, and one of the funniest lines that CJ said was, "I never understood the phrase meaningless sex." I was like, what? It's so bizarre. It's just
that's a GTA like mainstay. Is like the characters just blurting out uncharacteristic or like off context dialogue in the middle of an action scene.
Yeah, oh my God, it's completely strange. And so it causes a whole ruckus, because what you have to understand is this sort of thing didn't happen much back in the day, especially with delicious intercourse. Mm-hmm. And the what really freaked everybody out, especially like parents and stuff, is they made such a big deal about putting ratings on games and sort of keeping this content a certain way for the public, and the idea that some filthy, lewd sex thing could be hidden on your child's game disc, and you wouldn't know about it, and they skirted around the censors, and they're trying to feed your children pornography, because as if it's kind of like when you hear about people lacing drugs or lacing like Halloween candy. It's like, why would people waste their drugs on this Halloween candy? Like, who's getting off on that? Like,
well, it was people like Jack Thompson and culture warriors in general that would use the phrase murder simulator and basically had no traction, because everyone from action movies all the way to like spy thriller novels were just okay with people getting shot.
Of course, we are talking about Jack Thompson.
Jack the Ripper Thompson.
Jack the Ripper Thompson. If you're only listening to part 2 because you're some crazy asshole who doesn't live by the fucking rules, I acknowledge how awesome you are, by the way, for doing that. Jack Thompson is a lawyer out of Florida that was trying to keep violent video games out of the hands of minors. He was a giant thorn in Rockstar's ass, will continue to be, as we'll see in this episode, and is really just kind of an insane nutbag guy, and we'll hear more on him as we go. But yeah, he flipped the fuck out, and so did a lot of people. So did one Hillary Clinton. Really freaked out about this whole thing. Started her own war against video games.
There was a law was introduced in California whose name I can't quite remember, something dumb like H277 or whatever, introduced by Leland Yee and advocated by then Governor Schwarzenegger. New York prosecutor Elliot Spitzer also went after the game, which hurt the Rockstar crew, because this was supposed to be, New York City, their own home turf.
This is San Andreas, actually, so it's LA.
Oh, yeah. Or no, but that Spitzer was the New York Attorney General.
Oh.
Or not Attorney General, prosecutor, whatever.
I'm an idiot. Rockstar Games is based in New York. I'm just thinking ahead to the next game.
In California, Leland Yee was a California state guy, congressperson. I studied, I swear.
I don't know politics.
The point is,
I hate politics.
Like, all of these people, Leland Yee was caught, like, hiding money from like Laotian rebels or some shit. He was like involved in some spooky Black Ops bullshit. Elliot Spitzer, who was against sex in video games. Whoopsie Doodles, loves whores. Arnold Schwarzenegger fucked everything that moved.
We don't need to talk about the maid.
And Hillary Clinton didn't campaign in Michigan. Whatever. It's fine. I'm fine.
And so Rockstar makes a giant gaffe by releasing a statement that this was all the work of hackers, and the content was fully the modders, that they didn't create this content. That's really where they completely fucked up.
Because that was their best way out of like, oh, you can't blame us for a simple mod.
Yeah, and it was sort of more, from what I remember, it was kind of more one of those things where, and Rockstar's had an issue with this kind of for a long time, but the PR department kind of running away from the rest of the company and just sort of issuing a statement like that.
Yeah.
And, and then the rest of the company being like, you really should not have done that. Yeah. That was really stupid because we created that content. So they just looked even worse the moment that they found that content was also on console games. That totally proved their lie. Mm-hmm. and they found hacking tools on the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox that would release the content on consoles, and
all you had to do was alter a save file on a custom save card, and to unlock that content, you would only need to change 1 bit on the save file. Like, that stuff was there.
Yeah, and that is when the country really flipped out, and that was when
Blood was in the water.
Blood was in the water, and Rockstar had to recall the games. They had to change it to an AO, or adult-oriented rating.
It was the ESRB, which, we all know, rated T for teen.
Yeah.
Like, we all know those little black and white boxes. This was basically the only time that that system, which was put in place after like the whole Mortal Kombat fiasco, it was the entire games industry's bulwark against getting shut down by the government at any time for any bullshit, purpose. They had to put their foot down and prove that they were in charge, that the industry could regulate itself.
Absolutely, and I mean, man, it was a total shitstorm. We've got the city of Los Angeles filed a lawsuit against Take-Two Interactive. Take-Two and the FTC had to settle out of court in 2006. They were required to clearly and prominently disclose on product packaging and in any promotion for or advertisement for electronic games content relevant to the rating, unless that content had been disclosed sufficiently in prior submissions to the rating authority. Now, that's a lot of words, and I hate words. If you ask me, if you knock on my door and you say, Holden, wake up, get up, and you go around the back and you knock on the window, and then you open the window up and you see I'm playing with a bunch of human skin, leave me alone. You know what I'm saying? I'm doing something.
Holden, me and my friends have been, we're your friends. We've been talking, and just lay off the skin for a while.
Right. You've mentioned that. But it's hard in practice, It's like quitting smoking or killing people. So U.S. Senator Hillary Rodham Clinton suggested that new regulations be put on it with Joe Lieberman and Evan Bay. Those are a couple people. I remember Lieberman, the Liebs. I don't know who Evan Bay
Lieberman had
is.
a hard-on against video games since time immemorial.
They introduced the Family Entertainment Protection Act. And that called for a federal mandate enforcement of the ESRB rating system in order to protect children from inappropriate content. The children. The children.
What if the children look at two weird square people slightly grinding against each other?
Rubbing. It doesn't even look like sex. Again, if you're listening to this right now and you're close to some sort of way to watch a video, like, I don't know, the smartphone you're listening to this off of, look up these hot coffee on YouTube. They got plenty of videos of it. It is so dumb looking, and it is so funny to think that this caused a nationwide shitstorm. I mean, this was on news, primetime news. I remember everybody was hearing about this. And at the same time, it's just, you don't trust what you don't understand. And first of all, it's like, and again, and this has always also been Rockstar's MO. People freaking the fuck out about something that they haven't actually experienced, Because the thing with and I think the Housers have even talked about this in the past interviews.
Don't lecture me about what's in those virtual games. I know that GTA is about going from hooker to hooker with a chainsaw, screaming, I am the law. Hookers must die. Women are bad.
There's a mini game where you can suck your own dick. So everyone's freaking
there's
out.
an entire level where you just have to kill wops, and the whole time you just yell, Italians aren't human.
So, unlike a movie or, a piece of music that anybody can kind of access easily, games, you have to kind of know how to play games in order to, experience the content and play the actual game. So that really separates things so that you can have a lot more of a scary witch hunt, kind of like we saw with D&D, because it's not like these people are actually sitting down and playing Dungeons & Dragons or, reading the monster manual or anything. They, because they couldn't experience it themselves, like a really good horror movie, the monster's way scarier when you cannot see it. Well, these controversies are way more freaky when you don't actually experience the content. And so that was definitely the case here. 100-fold, and in a way it ended up being a good thing. Some of these regulations are very good. The Family Protection Act is not a bad thing.
I honestly don't believe a 12-year-old can just buy Grand Theft Auto on their own.
That's true.
Like, just respect the ratings. Like, yeah.
Be a good, and this is always the argument from Marilyn Manson to Rockstar Games, just be a good parent and regulate what your kids are listening to and watching and playing. It's not our job, We're here making these games, and that's what we're going to do. And if we want a guy fully clothed to dry hump a woman fully clothed with an excitement meter next to it, then I should goddamn be allowed to push up and down on a controller until he leaves very happily. And that's all that happens.
Now,
it's so much dirtier in the later games, what they put in, which makes me so happy. Like, there's so much filthier content when it comes to sex in 4 and 5, which we're getting to, I think.
Yeah. It's this controversy took its toll on Rockstar, which was already a very rock and roll, hard living place to work. They had released other games that were not as successful as Grand Theft Auto, the Manhunt series, the Midnight Drivers Club. I think I butchered that name, but a lot of the original Rockstar games that weren't Grand Theft Auto, which they bought from DMA Design when they turned them into Rockstar North, wasn't really going well. And so people were kind of and all these stories were coming out about these long hours and abusive conditions and hazings, and at satellite studios people were either quitting, there were suicides within the company. Like, the pressure was on, all the focus was on this company, and they were working themselves to the edge. And so it seemed like the final curtain was over. Like, this was a crisis point. The hot coffee mod, despite its incredible dumbness as a controversy, really was close to a breaking point for the company. Absolutely.
And they had to pull the game off shelves. They had to release a patch called Cold Coffee that cut the material out of the game, or block the material, or if you try to access the material, it would make your game crash. They re-released the games and put them on shelves.
Sam Houser, at the height of the controversy, had to submit to a 9-hour hearing at the FTC. 9 hours.
It's as bad as it got for Rockstar,
yeah.
And as good as it got for the censors. And after that, really, we saw kind of a great change. And with that change, I think one of the things that kind of marked it for me, which I love that this happened, on March 14, 2007, Take-Two files a lawsuit seeking to permanently enjoin Thompson from filing any public nuisance action against the company that would block the sales to minors of the unreleased video games Grand Theft Auto 4 and Manhunt 2, which it essentially alleged that lawsuits violated the company's First Amendment rights. Because what you got to understand is, this is what Jack Thompson does. He goes around to video game makers and musicians and things like that and just files lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. It's total harassment. He's a complete
Which is
dickhead.
illegal. I think it's called like vexing or something. It's not allowed. You can't just file bullshit lawsuits knowing that you'll lose just to like fuck with people.
It's insane bullshit nonsense. And once they filed that, Thompson responded. I've watched some interviews with him, so now I can imitate him. I have been praying literally that Take-Two and its lawyer, I wish that he didn't sound like this, but he totally sounds like
that.
And its lawyers would do something so stupid, so arrogant, so dumb, even dumber than what they have to date done, that such a misstep would enable me to destroy Take-Two. I'm horny.
Imagine the stern attitude of a vice principal combined with the weakness and impotency of a substitute teacher, and you have yourself the perfect enemy of teen boys.
If you're a dickhead dude about the law will bite back. They settled the suit. Thompson agreed to the terms. He was still a complete fucking asshole about it, though. He wrote a letter to
the president of Take-Two Interactive's mom,
addressed to the president's mom, saying that it essentially had blood on his hands. It was accusing him of doing everything he possibly can to sell as many copies of GTA 4 to teen boys in the United States, a country in which your son claims you raised him to be a Boy Scout. More like Hitler Youth, I would say.
Whoa.
Yeah, dude, this guy is a complete asshole. But the good news is, in 2007, the Florida bar files disbarment proceedings against Thompson over allegations of professional misconduct.
And all he had to do to avoid that ruling of disbarment is not be a taint about it.
Yeah.
And turns out he was a giant taint about it.
Yeah, he was a complete asshole about it, and it caused his disbarment.
Yep. There's footage of him that like a Destructoid editor snuck into the hearing and like has shaky like flip cam quality footage.
I gotta see that.
He's just such a tool. It's just so funny.
Yeah, I watched a lot of interviews on like Fox News with him today, and there was a G4 interview that was really good of him and the people who were fighting against him just kind of screaming at each other. And yeah, he's a good shitty asshole talking head to watch. So and he really has been. I mean, fans have made like fan-made games like shitting on him and like, you know, I mean, he's just been the source of hatred and ridicule for the gamers. And the thing about gamers is like they don't give a fuck. They will take your ass down, you know?
Yeah.
And they will be gross about it and they will be shitty about it, you know?
Let's not celebrate that aspect.
I'm not celebrating it. I'm just saying, you know? So anywhoosies, that's the end of the Jack Thompson saga. But let's get into, essentially the moment that GTA went from being kind of making fun, silly parodies of gangster films past to
war crimes.
Yeah. Serious ass Hollywood film original storytelling. And we got that when we first saw the trailer. Marcus, if you want to pop us in with a little bit of that trailer so we can get into the mood here for GTA 4.
Life is complicated. I killed people, smuggled people, sold people.
Bomb.
Perhaps here, things will be different.
My cousin! Bowling!
Let's go bowling. There you go. And that was okay. So if you can put yourself in the place in history, I mean, so far we've gotten these really over-the-top, funny, silly kind of odes, nods to different gangster films. Well, this was the first time where it was like, what? This is like...
I don't remember that episode of Miami Vice.
Yeah. Dark, gritty, serious, and completely original. It was just unlike, you know, any like sort of...
Set in the present day. This
Yeah.
isn't a pastiche. This isn't a montage.
And a return to Liberty City, but this time they were actually trying to make it look like New York as much as humanly possible. And one might say that New York was the best character in the game. I mean, they really just spent so much time trying to emulate New York in the time. And by the way, this was released in 2008.
Which is the jump from PS2 to PS3 or Xbox to Xbox 360 is almost more monumental than from like Super Nintendo to PlayStation because the level of capability was such a jump. I feel like a lot of the promise of the early GTA games was like, wow, imagine what games could be. This is amazing.
Right.
This is like a glimpse of the future. Whereas the HD era of GTA is the future.
Yes.
I mean, just the fact that you're running from 32 megabytes of system memory to 512 megabytes is an insane amount of animations and textures and geometry
They had,
and
like,
physics and simulation
I think I read
and AI.
I think I read somewhere they had like 30 different types of lampposts alone. I mean, it was insane. They had just the amount of detail that was put into every inch of the city, and you could really have that now, whereas you had these blocky buildings and these kind of just general sort of cityscape. Now you had buildings you could go into. You had a much more of a living, realistic world. It was also the first time that GTA used the Rage engine. And,
No, it was the second time.
oh, it was the second
The
time?
first time the Rage engine was used on Rockstar Ping Pong.
Oh, right. I forgot. Table tennis. Yeah.
Table
Which is
tennis.
actually a pretty sweet game.
I heard it was a really good game. That's, yeah.
Strangely enough, Rockstar Table Tennis kind of kicks ass.
Yeah, I really want to play it, actually. And that didn't do so hot, but apparently it was like, I always heard it was a lot of fun,
Yeah.
but it was that game like nobody bought. They just like heard someone say like, yeah, it's pretty good. It's like, well, if Roy likes it.
The Rage engine, of course, stands for Rockstar Advanced Game Engine. which handles a lot of the physics and rendering and kind of I've heard it described that the Rage engine is so complete and versatile that itself is a game that you can then adjust and form into any game you want. And so it's been used on everything from Red Dead Redemption to all the Grand Theft Auto series, Max Payne 3, and a highly amped up version of it was used for GTA 5. In addition to that, they used the Euphoria game engine, which is what handled the animations and the AI and physics, which kind of combined like pre-canned animations, motion capture, and physics so that when you shot someone, they like recoiled and like fell down and like protected their fall, and like it gave this very fake world an incredible amount of realism and natural flow. It's honestly, games that use the Euphoria engine stand out because of how much more naturalistic the in-game characters behave.
Now, story-wise, there was a lot about how it kind of got too nice in America in a way, criminal-wise. Like, the gangsters almost got a little too comfortable. There was no edge anymore. Gangster films had kind of died off. They didn't really, literally, they just had no other genre of gangster film to parody, or subgenre, rather. So they just made it an immigrant and created their own original story. Dan Houser said in an interview on IGN about the story, the idea that it's actually really difficult to be, it's about the idea that it's actually really difficult to be a criminal today. It's easy to be a guy swindling people on the internet, but to be a drug dealer or mob boss or one of these other archetype criminals, there's so much surveillance, so many ways of capturing you, and so many people rat you out that it was really hard. It's like the end of an era. We wanted to capture that idea in the game, and these kinds of characters who are kind of worn out and broken, and that this is their last shot. Using this Eastern European guy to try to help them out of this last big hole they've dug for themselves, which sounds a lot like where Rockstar was.
Absolutely.
At that point, after all the lawsuits and all the bullshit that went down with hot coffee and the end of San Andreas.
I mean, the Houser brothers saw America as this lawless, free place. That's what drew them to that whole Def Jam 90s New York era that made them so strongly want to make it here that and then and then coming face to face with Joe Lieberman and Hillary Clinton.
Because as we know, at every house party, there's got to be some hour that the squares show up and make us all play Kiss the Cat.
What?
What?
Kiss the
cat. When the squares with the lame people would show up and take the drink out of your hand and make you kiss the cat.
When you say make, what do you mean?
Well, it was like,
you?
how many times can you kiss this cat before you fall in love with it? And it was like 17 for me. For Charles, it was real bad. It was like 145. That's when people started leaving because we're kissing cats and we're not getting drunk and fucking anymore. You know?
That's not a game, Holden.
That's not a game?
Someone just forced you to kiss an animal.
Wait. Are you not telling me that people in square box clothes, they were literally wearing cardboard boxes, they were naked they would come in and hold up a cat, like a homeless cat, and make you kiss it until you fall in love with it?
I'm saying that is not a common experience.
Okay. Man, go to school in Tallahassee, Florida once.
Oh, this was in Florida.
Oh, yeah. You think it's happening here?
Okay. Yeah, whatever. It's in Florida. It doesn't count.
Yeah.
So
He went to college in our nation's capital.
Yeah.
that's where I learned how to break humans for profit.
So, anywho, I think full disclosure here, let's talk about our own, because it was funny, at the end of the last episode, we kind of talked off microphone about how, well, really, Marcus and Jake, you guys didn't really enjoy the game so much.
It was, I never owned it. I would just play it over at friends' houses or like, kind of dick around with it when my roommate bought a new gaming PC or something. And, for one of the big things is how the physics engine in it was so like realistic that it made driving less fun. Another thing was they improved the combat. Shooting stuff was like really good. They used like a nice, as was the style at the time, kind of over-the-shoulder cover system, third-person thing, which was an improvement because previously like gunfights in GTA are kind of shitty. But like, what do you know about, like, what do you remember about Nico Bellic?
That's the thing. And Marcus?
I just kind of it never grabbed me. There was that like I would play it I played it for hours, but there was like just that moment where I'm like, oh, okay, I'm into this. Like with all the rest of the GTA games, there is that moment where it grabs you. And I mean, shit, GTA 5, it is the first moment of the game that absolutely grabs you. But with GTA 4, there just wasn't ever that moment that made me want to play it more. And I remember I bought it and tried playing it twice.
Oh, wow.
It was one of my first games on PS3 where I bought it. I'm like, oh yeah, fuck yeah, New York City, it's going to be great. I've been waiting to play like a GTA game in New York City for forever, and then I play it and just like, man, it's kind of boring.
Yeah.
This is, and I think it is like kind of, it tells you something that the only thing that anyone remembers about GTA 4 is my cousin. Let's go bowling.
Which is a thing. There's something that happens. I've been thinking about this forever. There's something that happens in gaming, in the gaming community, when there is a large scale, like, open world game that like everyone played, but nobody like thoroughly enjoyed. Then so like these weird like annoying things become these memes because they're like these stark reminders like, oh shit, that happened. That time in my life was real. Like Skyrim's like, oh, arrow to the knee. Like that's another one. It's like another colony needs your help in Fallout 4. It's because you just sunk all these hours that like left barely an impression on you. But then with that one meme, you're like, oh fuck, that was real. And millions of other people also did that.
I was the only defender when we had this conversation. I was like, I remember enjoying it, but then I thought about it, and I was like, I don't remember a fucking thing about that game.
Yeah.
Except for my cousin, right? And I do remember that you had to make a big choice at the end. That was a big part of the game, was making choices and missions, and I remember that was kind of interesting. But all in all, and I was a person who kind of walked away happy with the experience, it definitely wasn't super memorable. And I think the point I'm making is this, is that this was a very important game for Rockstar's history. This was the game that marked them making a serious attempt at narration, at style and storytelling. They were no longer like parodying. For better or for worse, depending on who you are, they kind of dropped the over-the-top kind of cartoony sense of humor about going around the city, fucking shit up and being a gangster, and kind of got more serious about it. But it was also like their attempt at real life is like real life. Real life's boring, right?
Or if you're that violent, chances are you've had a fucked up past and aren't really happy.
Yeah, it's like kind of upsetting.
Like Nico Bellic, who suffered through the horrifying wars in Yugoslavia.
And I do think that, and you have to remember, with every one of these games, unbelievably enough, I mean, production starts the moment the last game ends. And so wherever they're at during the process of what happened after the last game ends is what that game is going to kind of show. It's this dark, muddy, gritty, upset game.
This was the brown era of HD gaming. We all were like Gears of War and God of War.
Everything
was just a little bit murkier to be like a little bit more real because we had that fidelity.
Everything was Spawn. Everything was Spawn. It was like games were like just hitting that gritty era that comic books had hit like a decade before.
Brown is a perfect way of putting it.
Yeah.
Every game was brown.
Even the great, and you mentioned like Gears of War was like an unbelievable step forward in gaming. It was this amazing thing, and it was just so dark. And I remember when I first sat down with it, as much as I enjoyed the experience, I was like, why does everything have to look like this?
Fallout 3 was another game around that time. That's that same dark brown color. Well, Fallout 4 was more green than anything, but still.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is due to the fact that, and they had to let go of like maybe colorization to add more depth to the landscape and things like that, or they couldn't make things, in order to, because I'd kind of read about that with like Skyrim and definitely with the original like earlier Fallouts like 3, like they had to sacrifice some kind of depth of color in order to just like be able to kind of create these things that it was like, in other words, it was super foggy,
the draw distance,
because they couldn't draw super far away draw distance, so they needed stuff like that. I think that GTA 4 has a set in a claustrophobic city like New York, a lot of reasons, because they could make things up close look amazing, but far away it was harder.
But it did have a fun online component. The modding community, despite Rockstar's best efforts, was very vibrant for that game. There was like an entire subgenre of just like watching SpongeBob kill people on YouTube for a while there. Rockstar did kind of cut off its ties with the modding community because they were just so burned by hot coffee.
Yeah. Man, I mean, and we're talking about a game that broke the Guinness Book of World Records for highest selling piece of entertainment with $310 million on its first day, $500 million in its first week. It exploded. It was huge. Everybody had it. It was insane. I mean, if we think, we just said San Andreas, which was the highest selling game on PS2, and what was it, 27 million?
Mm-hmm.
That's fucking nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was quite a successful game, but really, to me, looking back on it now, it was such an important game. But games like, really it took that game to establish this new path in Rockstar, and then it really took Red Dead Redemption, which this is a GT episode, but Red Dead Redemption is the game that took that serious, cinematic, amazing, original storytelling style, like, angle they were going for, and made it awesome.
Yeah.
And, like, told a really good story. And
We'll do a Red Dead Redemption episode when the sequel comes out.
Yeah, later this... Oh, my God.
Eat it up, you fuckers. You just saw a glimpse behind the curtain.
We're gonna get a Red Dead Redemption episode.
I
hate Troy Baker's accent in that. What? It's so static. It's well, I gotta go and hit myself some more courses.
You yellow belly son of bitches. I love you, wife.
So GTA 4 comes out in 2008, and then I think rightfully so, they took a long break from the GTA series, and they did that by going and working on Red Dead Redemption, which was...
We are blowing past Ballad of Gay Tony and Lost in the Dam, but that's because I never touched either of them and know nothing about them.
Yeah. I also skipped the GTA Advance on the Game Boy Advance. That was 2004.
Chinatown Wars, more like Chinatown Boars. Am I right?
Liberty City Stories on the PSP. Vice City Stories came out a year later on the PSP in 2006.
If you owned a PSP, let me say you're awesome. I love you. Your parents are rich, and I stole that from you in summer camp.
Oh, shit. Snooze, you lose. So it took, 2008 to 2013 before we saw another game. And, man, when we saw a glimpse of it, everybody shit their pants. Marcus, give it a hit. I got so excited.
You know, I've been in this game for a lot of years, and I got out alive. If you want my advice, give this shit up.
So good.
Literally, the music is bouncier.
The guns and crank in this area go through Trevor Phillips Enterprise, or they ain't going. I'll swing by and sign the contracts, all right? Just ignore the bodies.
That's the song, the fucking vibe.
Roberto Beach House is?
That house right there with the yellow stairs.
I don't care how many cars you own, you ain't changing.
I'm getting my money in the hood. I'm cool. Cool what? Slinging dope and throwing up gang signs?
Your son, James. He's a good kid.
Oh my God! Hey, let's bounce.
It's so weird hearing that voice.
We're bouncing now.
It's getting ready to go. It's getting ready to show. Somebody shut up like the mountain. We're getting ready to know. It's getting ready to cry. It's getting ready to shock. Somebody turn up like it's getting ready.
That's Trevor, my best friend. That's Franklin, the son I always wanted.
Yeah, whatever.
Jesus, your therapist has a lot to answer for.
It's getting ready to go. It's getting ready to
So good.
Somebody shut up at the mountain. We're getting ready to know.
People watched those trailers so many times. I should have gone back and like looked at what was going on like historically, politically in the news because people were fucking ready for this
Oh,
game.
you know what was happening, dude? That giant crash had happened. It was what it was. The recession happened. And this was sort of like, fuck all this shit. We're going to just get money by robbing banks. The whole theme of the game, as stated by the Housers, is this is going after the almighty dollar. That's what this is about. This is
All-idy-aller.
little callback to the Simpsons episode. And I did one earlier. The children. That was Flanders, Lady Flanders, right?
No, I thought that was the Reverend Lovejoy's
Well,
wife.
somebody please think about the children.
Well, this is spring 2013, so this is right after an election.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That too. Yeah, absolutely. But people were like hot on that. That whole reception. Why do I keep saying reception? Recession thing.
Because you're not used to talking about politics.
Yes, I hate politics.
Sometimes money goes bye-bye and I get sad.
I can't believe I was on an episode of Abe Lincoln's Top Hat. I must have said nothing. It's like, yeah, I disagree.
Voting is cool.
I voted. So GTA is this celebration. It's also like, okay, we did GTA 4, super gritty, dark. We did Red Dead Redemption, a Western. Of course, it's going to be kind of gritty, dark, super self-serious. This is like a celebration of everything GTA has been up to this point. This is like, fuck you, pay me. This is like big fucking LA like a motherfucker. It's sun. It's bikinis. It's golf. It's,
They also, this was incredibly expensive to develop. They had a huge team of people working on it, teams of QA going across several continents, and they kind of learned their lessons from earlier kind of shakeups, and so like it wasn't like a crunch to the end. It wasn't like all cocaine. There were cocaine and strippers, but not as much cocaine and strippers. And so like this was a product of the best and the brightest in game development working their asses off to kind of get the most out of this a new bump up in technology, a new bump up in capabilities. And not only that, they kind of solved a lot of problems that made previous GTA games kind of frustrating, like using the 3 protagonist system.
And open world games in general, frustrating.
This is the first GTA game, just off the bat, this is the first GTA game where, like, after the initial sequence, you can just go anywhere. There's no weird bridges that are closed. There's no tutorials, or there is if you want there to be.
It's also the first game where you had 3 different protagonists to choose from. Okay, so let's say you end a mission, you're in the middle of nowhere. Instead of having to, like, drive your ass all the way back to...
or kill yourself.
Or do whatever you needed to do to, like, get back. You could just say, fuck it, let's see what Franklin's doing,
And they would do that amazing, like, sky view thing.
And I cannot believe there was no load time for that.
Nothing.
No load time at all.
And you could just find the characters doing whatever. Like Trevor will be doing something very Trevor. Franklin will be doing something very Franklin. Now, that's...
like you go to Trevor and he's dangling a guy off a bridge and then just drops him and then washes his hands. You're like, all right, I'm Trevor now.
Yeah, exactly, right?
That's the brilliant part about it's like the most common observation in the world, but like, Michael is like how early GTA gangster, like respect is everything ethos, like kind of playing the
hypocrite. Hypocrite, lives by the rules, but he's like trying to be a good guy, but he's a jerk criminal.
But story mission. He is the story mission, and like Franklin is like the virtual life kind of San Andreas.
Franklin's like all of our basic instincts when we get into a game like that for the most part. Fuck shit up, blow it up, who gives a shit? I'm a crazy person. And it allowed you to be able to do that and not feel distance from the character as opposed to, doing that as any of the past protagonists, really.
And Trevor is just like how everyone actually plays Grand Theft Auto.
That's what I was saying. Yeah, and Franklin is essentially CJ in so many ways, but he kind of represents that and also that up-and-coming crook.
But he's like when you go into a GTA game, you're like, all right.
Yeah.
Like, all right, like you just kind of roll with it.
Yeah.
Like you're just kind of rolling with whatever comes. But yeah, of course, Trevor's everyone's favorite.
Yeah.
Everyone's favorite.
The performances were amazing. The actors they got were incredible. They did full motion capture while they were recording their dialogue. So, like, the way the community embraced, especially Trevor's actor, Steve Ogg, I've never had to say his name out loud, was, because they were these characters. The actor that played Michael, whose name I can't bring up because my thing's off, but he talks about in interviews how literally he was trying to get out of the acting game and like was scared to like get back into it when he got the part for GTA.
They were each also written for different embodiments. Michael was greed, Franklin was ambition, Trevor insanity, which I think also goes a long way to
The 3 aspects of personality that we're all familiar with.
Yeah, that we
greed,
all
ambition, and insanity.
embody in GTA games as well, right? That we sort of all kind of go after.
All right, what about love and fear?
You mentioned it was worked on by a giant team. It's over 1,000 fucking people.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, they studied census data to reflect the demographics of the area. I mean, they definitely did all their old stuff. Go to gun ranges and shoot off guns. I would love to see the Rockstar programmers all huddled up in a gun range trying to fire off guns for the first time ever. That would have been amazing.
And besides the fact that it felt great to play. It was seamless. We talked about just how well optimized it was, but I've watched so many videos of just people finding holy shit details in the game where who would have even bothered to take the time to program this? If you go into a swimming pool, your clothes are wet and you leave wet footprints for a couple of meters after you leave. Someone noticed that if you're wearing flip-flops, they actually have physics and flip-flop on your feet, which is such a crazy thing to include. If you're walking on grass, the grass moves out under you. Famously, if you're driving on the highway and you run across a rumble strip, your controller will go it's
unreal. And they, of course, a year later or so, released an updated version for Xbox One and PS4. And they went through the trouble of allowing you to play that game in first-person mode in that version, which is unbelievable. I know, Marcus, you and I both have that.
I played it Sunday.
It's so good. I beat it a month ago, I think. It's unbelievably good.
Yeah,
and
it's amazing.
Fun fact about the first-person mode, several people have created VR mods to the game, and people have universally called them incredibly disturbing because of the Euphoria AI physics engine, where previously in video games, especially VR games, you kind of just go bang bang and they're you got me, but in GTA they kind of cower and fall over and beg for their lives. And it's just not fun to kill people in first person by holding your hand up and shooting them.
Also, very famously, if you're familiar with some of the other shows we do here, Ed Larson is in a mission. If you go to the trailer park in the Trevor mission, the biker trailer park where he has to stealth around and blow up the different trailers, if you kind of walk towards the middle and you hear a guy banging on a girl's trailer and yelling for her to come out, that's Ed Larson.
There was a ton of New York comedians that ended up in there.
Danny Tamborelli, who has a big part in the game. He plays the son of Michael.
He's Jimmy, and he's going to be on Roundtable this week.
Yeah,
awesome. Actually, the funny thing is, he's right outside right now.
I know, right? We should probably bring him in and talk to him.
We're idiots. We're idiots.
I don't know how that happened.
Marcus, go get him. Go get him so he can scream questions. Really? Do we even communicate? He's outside.
Yeah, he's out. Well, you can actually
hear him. That's a major part in the game.
You can hear him talk about the making of the game and also about the episode of Magic School Bus where a fish swims by and sperms all over him and the other kids in my an episode of my Twitch where he came over and we played GTA 5
They're listening to this now.
No, you got to go to my Twitch. You got to follow me on Twitch. If you're not following me on Twitch, you should probably follow me on Twitch. Holdenators Ho on Twitch. There you go. And then that's all you need. The television person. Who is television personality Karen Gravano?
I have no idea.
Well, actress Lindsay Lohan as well. Both tried to file lawsuits.
She's like a housewife of Who Gives a Shit.
Her likeness is It's one of those dumb things.
I was hoping we didn't talk about the Lindsay Lohan lawsuit because it's such bullshit.
It's so stupid. Well, it just to laugh at it. They're idiots.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and it has an online community that's still thriving. I've dipped my little teensies into it, but I haven't really messed with it too much. A cottage
industry of people doing contests and doing stunts online. The GTA stunt compilation videos are like their own industry. There's all this intrigue because the currency within the game, people have tried to have successfully run real world heists and scams to get people's Rockstar money. There are all these articles about how there's biker gangs that just fully role play territory wars on the servers.
It's incredible. I mean, it's like that. It finally came real, like that real world that you and your friends and your enemies can all sort of battle in and race together and have fun together. It's like so huge. I'm intimidated by it, and
it's very overwhelming.
Yeah,
I did dip my toe into it as well. It's like, man, this is too much.
It's huge, and yeah, I plan on returning to it. I think I'm actually going to. Speaking of the Twitch stream, I think I'm going to actually try to do that quite a bit there because that'd be a good excuse to do it. Play more GTA Online, but it is unbelievable. I'm so curious as to where the series is going to go next. Of course, they're doing Red Dead 2, so we're not going to get a new game, and I think that's a good thing for quite a little while, and I wonder if where they'll go, maybe back to Miami.
I've been thinking about it. I really do think they're going to do a London one.
You think London?
It's about time.
I think they're finally going to do London.
Yeah, that would be pretty awesome. Tokyo would be cool, or Hong Kong would be cool. Maybe a medieval, a witch tale, GTA witch story. I always thought, and then they kind of came out with a Godfather series, but I always thought that would have been cool. Like go back in time, do something, back in like the 50s, 60s, or even old timey gangsters.
They should team up and do Saints Row versus Grand Theft Auto.
That'd be
so like
cool.
one side is all like superpowers and dildos, and the other side is all like cool cars and like
dildos.
Plots I give a shit about.
Yeah.
No, the writing in GTA 5 is like way stronger. There's definitely like this building up to individual heists was a brilliant framing device.
Putting a juggalo in there, that was a great move.
Oh, I loved the
aliens,
the hidden code that people are still trying to decipher, that hieroglyph that people are still trying to find the secret of is so great and so smart.
And it's super funny.
Yeah. Totally funny. And that's the thing. It's like it's got that like fun energy to it while also being fucked up and strange and weird. And I think the next one they should probably do New York but with dragons. That's what I'm thinking. So just giant dragons with guns, dragons with hats.
No, they should just do like Detroit. But there's just nothing to do.
Detroit, but you're one of those dog gangs, and you're just roaming around as a dog, like fucking shit up. And
Dog
taking
Theft
over the
Auto.
town. Yeah, Dog Theft Auto, exactly. So Lord knows where the series will take us, but I think that about wraps up our two-parter on the GTA series. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, or if you didn't, either way, please rate and review the game with the show with 5 stars. Get that.
We need the reviews way more than the game does.
Yeah, even if you hated it, rate us 5 stars and then complain about it. You know what I'm saying? That'd be a cool dude move, dude.
Yeah, bro, man.
Bro. On iTunes, of course, is what I'm talking about.
I've seen some really nice stuff being written about us on Twitter, and like, we're not. I'm not too proud to say that like I'll check once in a while.
Yeah,
it honestly lifts my spirit to see people that are listening to this and enjoying what we're doing. And if you have been involved in some sort of cat kissing incident, please tell local authorities you have been attacked.
Please.
And I had some super nice people in Salt Lake City that were big fans of this show. So I just want to say hello.
Fantastic.
They made sure to want me to let you know.
Oh,
that they were
fantastic. Oh, man. It's so great to hear stuff like that. So thank you so much. Keep that train a rolling for us. We come from low self-esteems. We come from very hard. The Mark Jeton, if you were out there, you will no longer bully me, sir. You will no longer make me go to the back of the lunch line. Real dude.
I'm strong now.
So Holdenators Ho on Twitch. Check it out. That's that.
Follow me at Best Jake Young, and check out the Drawfee channel on YouTube, where we recently raised $6,000 for the ACLU in a 6-hour stream, and you can check out all of it if you just hate time.
Have a great one, everybody. Take care.
For more shows like the one you just listened to, go to cavecomedyradio.com.